Good afternoon. I'm Patrick Simpson, and I do hope everyone's doing well today. For this presentation on freedom and liberty, I wanted to begin with Cicero, where he states that freedom is a man's natural power of doing what he pleases, so far as he is not prevented by force or law. Liberty consists in the power by doing that which is permitted by the law. In our readings that we have done, one of the kind of underlying themes is this idea that the principle of all democracies is liberty. But what is liberty? What is freedom? Is there a difference? Do people today understand the difference? When preparing for this video, I could not help think, do people today really understand the difference between liberty and freedom? And with the pandemic, I've noticed that those terms have started to come more and more to the forefront. People, questioning whether or not the government has the right to shut down businesses, to force you to wear masks in public, to shut down people's livelihood for the greater good. And one site that was actually talking about freedom and liberty actually used the wearing a mask as a term, as a way of trying to show the difference between freedom and liberty, where they said that freedom was choosing whether or not to wear a mask in public, and that liberty was having the right to make that choice. In preparing for this video, I came across this quote from Murray Rothbard, who wrote a book called Conceived in Liberty, where he says that I see the liberty of the individual not only as a great moral good in itself, but also as the necessary condition for the flowering of all the other goods that mankind cherishes: moral virtue, civilization, the arts and sciences, economic prosperity. Out of liberty, then, stem the glories of a civilized life. I think that in many ways the term freedom and liberty have become kind of cliche, that modern politics, today's politicians and today's media have used those words so interchangeably that they have become synonymous to the public, and thus makes quite confusing that there is a difference between the two. But I'm not so sure people today fully understand that there are two different meanings to liberty and freedom. And again, preparing for this video, I remembered a book by Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And he said, or he wrote in his book, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms: to choose one's attitude in a given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way in how he approaches his circumstances. For Viktor Frankl, he kind of presents freedom as an internal construct. So, in other words, to be free is to take ownership of what goes on, between your ears. To be autonomous and thought first and action second. Your freedom to act a certain way can be taken from you, but your attitude about your circumstances cannot, making one's freedom, predominantly an internal construct. As for liberty, it's predominantly an external construct. It is the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. The ancient philosophers, the ancient Stoics understood this, and so do our own founding fathers, who wisely noted a distinction between negative and positive liberties, and codified those differences in the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The distinction between negative and positive liberties is particularly important because an understanding of each helps us understand how important these documents are. But not only just the documents of our documents, but you can see this in many of the other Western civilization documents that are out there. It says what the state cannot do, that the Bill of Rights is a charter of negative liberties. However, it does not say what the state must do on your behalf. This would be positive liberty, an obligation imposed upon you by the state. That's kind of keeping what Murray Rothbard had stated. The liberty of the individual is the necessary condition for the flowering of all other goods that mankind cherishes. Living in liberty allows each of us to enjoy our freedoms, and how these two terms develop and complement one another is important for anyone desiring to better understand what it means to be free. In doing this presentation, there were, of course, other um, articles and books that I went back and looked through, and I put them in the bibliography on the abstract for this discussion board, and books that I highly recommend if anybody has the time to go back and look through if you have not already done so. But let me finish with this. Discussions about freedom and liberty have become, to me, quite quaint, as people use these words almost in a Orwellian fashion to justify a litany of government intrusions in our lives. When we let their meanings become obscured, we see to those whose underlying goal is more state power, the ability to manipulate the public for their own ends. We not only need to comprehend the difference between freedom and liberty, but also recover their original meaning so that there is a foundational clarity in political discussions. Thank you for your time. I apologize for running a little bit over. But anyway, I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you again. Goodbye.